Right now, we're joined by the former president of Harvard University. He was the president for 5 years, Larry Summers. Larry, thanks so much for joining us. I know you call this move by the Trump administration against Harvard, and I'm quoting you now, the stuff of tyranny. And you say Harvard must start resisting. The university just announced it's suing to try to block this order from the Trump administration. How would you respond if you were still leading Harvard?
The university's doing just the right thing. This is extortion. It's a vendetta using all powers of the government because of a political argument with Harvard. It is violating the First Amendment. It is also violating all the laws we have regarding administrative procedures. Look, Wolf, I've been on your show many times, and I've often been critical of Harvard on aspects relating to identity politics, anti-Semitism, and much more. But that's not what this is about. This is about a vicious attack to pursue a personal agenda. And the consequences, whether it's students who are dissidents from tyrannies who are going to be sent home and possibly be imprisoned, whether it's labs that are fighting cancer and diabetes that are going to lose key people, whether it's 7,000 people, some small fraction of whom are going to go on to be prime ministers of countries who've been turned into enemies of the United States, whether it is the way in which America is seen when it expels people whose dream was to come to Harvard to study. This is madness. You know, the president and his administration have made a big deal, and they've been right, about Israel and anti-Semitism. Sending every Israeli student out of Harvard is much more discriminatory against Israelis and is much more discriminatory against Jews than anything they have complained about. I have thought I was done being surprised by how low the Trump administration would go, but I am surprised by what has happened. I am proud of Harvard's president, Alan Garber, for his leadership and for this lawsuit. If we are a country of law, and I deeply believe we still are, Harvard will prevail in this lawsuit, and I hope and trust it will prevail quickly. Think about the families coming from all over the world for our graduation a week from now, people being stopped at airports, people who devoted their lives to making it possible for their kids to go to Harvard and to see them graduate, now being told that somehow this is all being stopped because of a vendetta against Harvard. I'm sorry, I just can't quite believe that this is happening in the United States.
It certainly is hard to believe. One international Harvard student, Larry, says he and other foreign students are now feeling, and I'm quoting now, pure panic. Now, you're the former president of Harvard University. What message do you have for them, for those students who are now being kicked out of the United States?
Everyone at Harvard has your back. We are going to fight in every way we can in the courts with the support that can be provided financially to make this work for you. The President of the United States is a very tough enemy, and so we can't promise what every result is going to be, but know that there are things where there's argument and division in the university. Opposition to this is not something where there is any division. And I think that I am still hopeful that justice and common sense will prevail.
China says this ban will only tarnish America's image and reputation around the world. And on Chinese social media, people wrote things like, quote, "It's fun to watch them destroy their own strength, and recruiting international students is the main way to attract top talent." What kind of long-term damage could this move have on the U.S.?
Look, we have always thought that a huge strength of the United States was what my late colleague Joe Nye called soft power, the power of our example. The fact that people from all over the world didn't want to go study in China, they wanted to go study in the United States. The fact that the books, the movies, the songs, that we were the technologies, that we were the source of attraction for people from all over the world. When we do our very best to undo that, when we emulate Chinese totalitarianism, where the government is censoring and stomping on universities, we are ceding one of our greatest advantages. I cannot imagine a greater strategic gift that we could be giving to China, that we could be giving to the enemies of freedom around the world, than the kinds of steps that are being taken. Yes, this is going to be damaging to Harvard. It's going to be incredibly damaging to Harvard if it is allowed to stand. But that is the least of it. It is much more profound how damaging this is to the standing and role and position of the United States. We used to be a beacon to the world of nations. We're now becoming a negative example. I imagine there must be great joy in Beijing and Moscow seeing us implode with these kinds of policies.
While I have you, Larry, I want to quickly turn to Trump's trade war announcements today. You served, of course, as the U.S. Treasury Secretary under President Bill Clinton. And President Trump has just recommended slapping a 50% new tariff on all products coming into the United States from the European Union. Take a listen to what the current Treasury Secretary said about this. Listen to this.
I would hope that this would light a fire under the EU because, Bill, I've said before, EU has a collective action problem here. It's 27 countries, but they're being represented by this one group in Brussels. So some of the feedback that I've been getting is that the underlying countries don't even know what the EU is negotiating on their behalf.
What's your reaction to that?
These are crazy policies. The tariff policies, as now accounted, are going to cost the average American $3,600. They're going to push up inflation in the same way that we pushed up inflation in 2021. And I suspect it'll have political consequences like those that it had after the Biden policies contributed to inflation. This is not a time when we need to be making enemies and adversaries with capriciously chosen policies announced on Twitter. I'll tell you something else, Wolf. The film clip you played from the Treasury Secretary, not the one you just played, but the one you played 10 minutes ago, had a very interesting phrase. He said, "The president believes," and then he said some nonsense about bad European policies. In my experience, when a cabinet secretary says the president believes, it means that that cabinet secretary knows better and wants to be loyal, but also true to themselves. So there are plenty of people in the Trump administration who know better than to be making policy this way. In the recent past, Secretary Bessent has gone to the White House and, when they were causing lots of damage in markets, gotten the president to back off some of the tariff policies. I suspect before long he'll have another mission like that.
Larry Summers, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.